tutorial, we're going to cover scheduled work orders. Scheduled work orders are a way to generate work orders based on certain milestones of a piece of equipment. This could be hours, dates, also distances that the equipment's traveled. When they hit those work orders become due in the system. The way we go ahead and schedule a work order is we're going to go to our mechanics page. Now, the first thing you notice in the mechanics page is they have something very similar to what the superintendent has on his board. We can see that we've assigned a couple work orders right here already. We'll cover this a little bit later in another tutorial. But to schedule a work order, we're going to go to scheduled work orders. These are all the work orders that I currently have scheduled for different pieces of equipment. We're going to go ahead and create a new work order. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and give it a name, and maybe we're going to do a change. We're going to change oil, and I know it's going to be on a JD 5500. You don't have to put this, but it helps distinguish it from different work orders. I can also add a description here. Maybe it's the type of oil that we use. Maybe it's how many quarts of oil that we put into the system. So we can put a whole bunch of notes here if we want. Maybe it's check tire pressure while you're at it. So we can do whatever we like here to remind who's ever checking this piece of equipment to put this type of oil and how much, and maybe some other general things that we want done. The next piece is the scheduler. When I click on here, I can schedule the work order in a number of different ways. I can schedule it by hours. This is going to be probably the most common. I can also schedule it by dates. So maybe you have a fall kind of maintenance schedule that you stick to, whether it's grinding wheels or maybe it's checking fittings and hoses and making sure everything is tight. You may schedule that by a date. Distances for anything that has odometers like vehicles, and then days or anything that's like 45 days or maybe 2 years or something like that you want to schedule days in advance, and to keep doing that every time those days come up. But we're going to stick with hours for right now. The next option is service on hour and service every so many hours. First of all, if I click on service on hours, I get a box that allows me to type in the hours. In the case of an oil change, let's just assume that this is a brand new piece of equipment. We have to change the oil at 5 hours, and then we have to change the oil at 50 hours, and maybe for some reason the manual says change the oil at 150 hours. They're not real incrementally spaced, so they're kind of odd. So we can do this service on hour and type in our own hours that we want to do. Service every so many hours, this is going to be that consistent incremental hours, and this is the case for an oil change. I'm going to say I'm going to schedule this on a 50-hour basis here, so I'm going to schedule this every 50 hours. The next piece I have is as scheduled. As scheduled means that at 50, 100, 150, 200, that piece of equipment is going to get service. It doesn't matter when I do the service. If I do the service at 160, the next service is going to be at 200. It's going to stay on that schedule. You may prefer to do it on service, meaning at that 160 mark, the next service is going to be at 210. The choice is up to you. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as scheduled. The next piece we want to do is we want to add equipment to this piece. Now when I click add equipment, I get our add equipment box. Now I'm going to apply this to the John Deere 5500, and I can click on that and I can see my entire fleet of 5500s right there. And I can click on these to add these to the work order. You can see they're adding down here. Now I don't have to add all of them, but whatever's in this individual box is going to be what gets the work order. So if I want all of them, I can go ahead and click it. Now keep in mind that we selected these pieces individually, so the system thinks that these are individual pieces of equipment, which they are. But if I go ahead and add a John Deere FM4 down the line, it's not going to get this work order because we've just selected the individual piece of equipment. So I'd have to come back and manually add that back into this scheduled work order. And as soon as I add that, it would become part of this work order and it would start generating work orders on the specified 50 hours. Or if I know that when I add a piece of equipment to my equipment list and I want it to automatically receive the work order, I can just go ahead and add type. When we have a group in here, it's automatically going to add any kind of new equipment into that group. So if I add another John Deere 5500, it's automatically going to get this work order. I don't have to come back and actually manually add it to the schedule. The next piece is to add jobs. So every work order has to have a job, and generally the job will be the same as the work order title. In this case, change oil, JD 5500. I've got the same name here, and I'm happy with that name, so I'm going to keep it. I'm going to assign a job or a task to this work order. This is just like taskTracker. I'm going to track my labor under maintenance for this. I can select any tasks that I want to go ahead and track that maintenance under, but I'm going to just do maintenance. Some people may want to track it under John Deere maintenance versus Toro maintenance. However you want to do that, you can do that. If the task isn't in the system, you can go ahead and hit add task, and a pop-up window will show, and you can go ahead and add the task that you desire to track it under. Change oil is a pretty easy task. I'm going to set the estimated time at 1 hour. I'm also going to set the book rate at 1 hour, meaning that every time I assign this task to a person that day, I'm assuming he's going to work for 1 hour on it, and that's the book rate. If we were building a transmission, the book rate may be 12 hours, but when I assign it to someone that day or they work on it, I don't expect him to work for 12 hours. I may only expect him to work for maybe 4. So I may put estimated time of 4 in here, and then a 12-hour book rate. Book rates just allows you to keep track of what maybe the actual time it should take is and how much time it actually did take your mechanic or system mechanics to go ahead and do those jobs. Notes, I can add individual notes to this job. So maybe this is where I want to add what type of oil or the quartz. Maybe it's a better place in this notes to add it here, but I'm just going to leave that blank for now. The next part is we can go ahead and select parts. So if you want to add parts to this, maybe it's something with spark plugs that you're changing out and you know you need spark plugs, you can go ahead and add those. You can add this at a later date too, so you don't have to add the parts right away. But I know this is going to take 7 quarts of oil, so I'm going to go 7 here. 5 quarts is what I put, so I'm going to put 5, and oil costs us 10, so it's going to cost us $50 in oil for this piece of equipment. I can go ahead and add another job if I like. So here's this other job, it's change oil, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just, I wanted to check tire pressure. And we know that that's going to take 0.5, and the book rate on that is 0.5, and I want to track that under maintenance as well. And it's preventative. We can put repair, but most of the stuff in the schedule is going to be preventative. If there's any notes that I want to do, I can go ahead and apply a note. Maybe it's 12 psi front and 15 rear. So we can go ahead and add that here to that system, to the notes section. Once I'm happy with it, I can go ahead and hit save. And now that work order has been generated. So now we can go into our equipment management piece. And when I actually click on this John Deere 5500, I can actually open up this piece and I can look at the maintenance side of things, and I can see that that oil change is right here, ready to be scheduled. So that piece is ready. Here's this is a different one that we had scheduled, but here's the one we just did. Check oil, check tire pressure, and we can go ahead and we can open these up, make changes on this, and we should be good to go with any kind of employees. Like if an employee worked for 2 hours on this, I can go ahead and add 2 hours and make alterations in this individual work order and go ahead and hit save.